Heists. Who doesn't love a good heist story? A group of skilled rogues trying to pull off the perfect con job, sneaking into a well-guarded location, ready for everything to go wrong in a moment. If you love a good heist, then welcome. I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and today I'm going to review the Dungeon Crawl Classics heist adventure, The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust. I found that heists are surprisingly rare in RPG adventures. Sure, there are dedicated games like Blades in the Dark, but they aren't too common in D&D style adventures, which typically focus on more straight-on fights, big bad guys, and opportunities for the PCs who might not be specialized in stealth, traps, and fast-talking. After all, when you're a wizard who can toss fireballs and lightning bolts, no one really wants to take you on their heist.
I bring with me the power of unlimited spell slots. What do you mean you don't want to bring me on your heist?
The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust is a heist adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics, a game that more typically spotlights sword and sorcery action, fantasy horror, or just gonzo weirdness. It's a game that loves to send adventurers deep into the earth to stop demons, or forwards them onto a weird dimension to retrieve an unknowable artifact. So it was with great surprise that I stumbled across The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust, an adventure that is all about a nighttime heist. In this adventure, a jewelry shop owner and fence, Boss Ogo, has seemingly gone missing. His shop has been shuttered and abandoned for weeks with no sign of the man. The thieves and rogues of the city take notice and are descending on his shop to break in and steal his wealth and then vanish into the night. And so the PCs are a band of would-be thieves who intend on breaking into Boss Ogo's house, snatching his wares, and maybe even discovering the mystery behind his disappearance. Of course, this is still Dungeon Crawl Classic, so there will be dark surprises and cruel dangers waiting for them in this supposedly abandoned shop. But does a heist adventure work and live up to the bar that DCC has set with some of its other adventures? Well, pack your grapnels, rope, and thieves' tools, because not only are you going to get a full review of The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust, but I'm going to give you GMs some tips and tricks on how to run this one like a pro. The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust is written by Harley Stroh, one of the veteran writers of DCC and one of my favorites. You can find this adventure in the Chaos Rising supplement, which compiles several short adventures together. It's designed for third-level characters and is intended to be run largely with a group of sneaky rogues and thieves. This could literally mean thieves, or it could include a warrior or a wizard who just kind of likes to skulk around and hang out with the more dastardly types. They just have to want to break into some fence's house and steal his stuff, which actually describes most of the adventurers I know. Because this adventure is designed for specific types of characters and is very short, it makes for the perfect one-shot that can easily fit into one session. The setup of this adventure is short and sweet. Boss Ogo was a notorious fence in the city. Somebody sold him a gemstone that was stolen from a sorcerer. Boss Ogo started studying this gem, and it slowly overtook his mind. And he sort of bonded with it and realized that his purpose in life was to summon the denizens of Ygis, some faraway dimension, and he succeeded in opening up a portal inside his house. And he's now bonded with this crystal, going insane, and is never going to come out alive again. His various minions, led by this guy named Sarzuk the Devil, are keeping watch over the house, although I think they're also looking to rob it when the time is right. I like to start this adventure with a technique I call banter cards. Here I created a few bullet points about this backstory and printed them out on cards. I hand one card to each player, and then they all take turns either reading one of those bullet points or paraphrasing them or role-playing them, just putting them in their own words. And then this bounces around the table in sort of a random fashion until all the information is out. And not only is this a great way to put the backstory in the hands of your players, but it plays out like that scene in a Quentin Tarantino movie where all of the rogues and dastards are surrounding a table talking about planning their job and their fears and their theories, and it just plays out like a little scene in a movie. So it's a great way to start a heist adventure. I encourage you to use this. And if you check a link in the description below, you can find where you can download my banter cards that you can use for your players. The action begins with the PCs staring up at this house, abandoned in the middle of the night. They're trying to find a way in. I like to add some extra pressure in this scenario, so I told my players that a bigger gang, led by the notorious Sarzuk the Devil, is also planning to break in tonight. But this gang is planning their break-in around 2 a.m., which gives the PCs a few hours to get in ahead of that gang and steal some stuff and get out before they arrive. I also like to describe that there's people in the shadows and on the rooftops, maybe watching the place, which adds some extra paranoia and urgency that the players will like a lot. The main door to the shop is sealed from the inside. The windows are all bricked up, but there are a few ways in. PCs can climb up to the 3rd floor's rose window and get in that way. Or they can hop over Boss Ogo's garden wall and pick their way into the side entrance. Or they can pull open a sewer grate and go in from below. Entering through the garden is the most dangerous way in, as it's the home of 4 spiders of Yigis. These giant tick-like insects which freeze parts of your body solid and then eat the meat while it's still frozen. I love how horrifying these guys are. Now, because the spiders of Yigis are present later in the adventure, I dial them down a little bit here. I mostly have them shoot webs at the players and maybe have one go in and attack because I just don't want to completely spoil these guys because they do show up in the boss encounter of the adventure later. So my advice is to go a little bit easy on the players, fight them a little bit, and then maybe have these spiders scurry off just so that it doesn't feel repetitive when you get to the end. The house itself is fairly small. It's only 3 levels with a handful of rooms on each floor. It's smartly designed too, since the PCs can break in lots of different ways, most likely the 1st floor or the top floor through the rose window. The most challenging floor, therefore, is the middle one, although this has some issues which I'll talk about a little bit later. The 1st floor is the jeweler's shop, and as you can imagine, it's laid out pretty much like a typical shop. There are some gems here that the players can loot through the drawers, but they're mostly fake, as you'd expect from a fence who's in league with the Thieves Guild. There's also a few good traps here, including a fall-away floor that will drop the players into a cage in the basement near the sewers.
Oh, look, boys, Boss Ogo left his drawers unlocked. Let's see what's inside, shall we?
I've run this adventure a couple of times, and my players almost always stumble into this trap. The 3rd floor is more of a working area. It includes Boss Ogo's office, an area for his men to sleep in, and his hidden treasure vault, something that is pretty difficult to break into because it is actually very well hidden and surrounded by some good deadly traps. But the 2nd floor is where everything gets weird. This is where Boss Ogo was playing around with the dark arts and that magical crystal of Yigis. His library is here with his crazy notes and studies of the crystal, and I even inserted a magic scroll or two with weird effects to tempt players into casting some rituals here in this room. One of my players actually had this great backstory that he was a conspiracy theorist and that he thought a lizard cult was controlling the Thieves Guild. So I put a scroll in here that could turn someone's head into a crocodile's head, which when he found it, he got really freaked out. So have some fun here adding a couple scrolls, which will really play into what your players like. There's also a large main room on this hall where a skull with a candle casts a weird light into the house. Stepping into the light summons evil shadows of the PCs, creatures of darkness that can only be defeated with magic weapons and which have the same abilities and weapons as the players themselves. Now, the players are unlikely to have magic weapons in this adventure. They're pretty rare in DCC to begin with, and there's only one to be found, which is in the basement of the house on a corpse, but it's pretty well hidden. But fortunately, the PCs can kick over the candle to banish the shadows for good, so this requires more brains than brawn. And finally, on the second floor behind a locked door is Boss Ogo himself. He's fused into his evil crystal, his mind is gone, and he's acting as a conduit between this world and the dimension of Yigis. The place is swarming with those dimensional spiders of Yigis, and he'll summon more and more spiders until the crystal is destroyed. This is a fun boss battle with lots for the players to juggle because they have the spiders, they have a swarm that stuns and disables them, they have the boss screaming, and the crystal which has to get destroyed. My players always have a blast with this ending, and in fact, the last time I ran it, it was really a close battle, and one of my players, that conspiracy theorist who believed in lizard cults, ended up actually getting sucked into the crystal, and now I think he's living happily on Yigis. Now, the issue here, which you might see, is that it's entirely possible to miss Boss Ogo. If the players come in through the third floor, they can find his treasure vault and escape without notice. Or if they decide not to lockpick that door that he's behind, they won't find him either. Or even if they do, as happened to one group of my players, they might just see Boss Ogo and that crystal and all those spiders and just nope it right out of there.
Oi, I bet you there's some good treasure in here. Oh, no thank you. We're just passing through. Goodbye.
My recommendation to fix this is to insert an NPC into this adventure. A lone burglar, let's call him Slim McGee, who snuck into the house just ahead of the PCs. The PCs may even hear him in the house snooping around, taking the chimneys up and down between the floors, always just out of sight. If the PCs get smart and catch him, he'll tell them that he heard that the real treasure of Boss Ogo is behind that door, prompting their greed and curiosity to go explore it. And if the PCs seem like they're ignoring that second door entirely, well, he sneaks down there and opens it up himself. He dies horribly screaming, and it will be clear to the PCs that if they don't stop Boss Ogo, his spiders will pour into the world and destroy it. And if the PCs open the door and just try to run, I use those other spiders that were in the garden that I mentioned to kind of come in up the stairs and surround them, kind of forcing them into this encounter. Oh, and to really drive home the stakes of this adventure, I make sure that when the PCs see that crystal, they sort of get visions of the hordes of the spiders of Yigis flooding into the world and devouring everything, just so that they know the stakes are high. But with the crystal destroyed and Boss Ogo vanquished, the PCs can escape into the night. And here, in a final scene, they are confronted by the other thieves who are hoping to loot the house, because Sarzuk the Devil, one of the lieutenants of Boss Ogo, shows up with a gang of thugs. Now, this final scene can feel a little anticlimactic, especially if the PCs are wounded badly from the final fight. So make sure that you set up the existence of these guys ahead of time in the adventure. I covered that in my banter cards, but if you don't use them, just make sure you remind the players that Sarzuk the Devil is in the area. He's probably either protecting the house or coming to loot it himself. And then you can reward the players who are smart and remember that, and maybe look out the windows before escaping the house, or decide to take another route and escape out the basement, because these guys are here not just to totally wipe out the players, which actually happened in one of my games, but just to apply some more pressure so that the players have to use stealth and guile to get out of the situation. And if it is a TPK and Sarzuk the Devil kills all the players, I would just tweak it, since this is a heist adventure, and say that he just simply knocked them out, stole everything, left them naked on the streets, and went away laughing. I think that's just a better end for a heist adventure than just having everybody dead, murdered in the streets. But game it the way you want. And that's The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust. So what do I think? I really like this adventure. If you set it up right, it makes for such a fun one-shot that feels very different from other DCC adventures, as it really highlights the thieves and rogues and their abilities, and rewards players for stealth and cleverness, not just killing everything in sight. It has a DCC-worthy, horrifying ending, and while it's not especially deadly, well, except for those thieves at the end, players who just stumble into the encounters with the spiders will definitely have trouble on their hands. I also like that the PCs can walk away from this adventure with not just bags of loot, but some handfuls of that evil Stardust from the Crystal of Yigis. And this is cool because the PCs can use it in small amounts to restore luck in future adventures, or they can even crush it into a single crystal again to put them in contact with that strange plane. But of course, the cost of all of this is that the mother spider of Yigis will be watching the players forevermore, so I don't know, they probably shouldn't do that. Like I said before, my only real problem with this adventure is that the boss encounter with Boss Ogo can be accidentally skipped, but that's easy to fix if you're aware of that issue. And those thugs at the end can feel a little tacked on and arbitrary unless you set them up right at the beginning of the adventure. But otherwise, the jeweler that dealt in Stardust is a real hidden gem. It's short, it's tightly written, and it feels different from other DCC adventures, really capturing the spirit of a good old-fashioned heist. So if you think your group would like to spend a few hours skulking around and looting stuff, well, bring this adventure to your table, maybe at night with a few candles lighting the room. Oh, and if you're going to play this adventure over VTT, check out the link in the description below for the maps I made for the house, handouts, and those banter cards. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more DCC reviews like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Besides, I think it's actually mandatory for you to like and subscribe if you want to retain your membership in the Thieves Guild, or else Sarzuk the Devil will be coming for you. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, if you're gonna loot an abandoned house in the middle of the night, just pay some kid to stand guard outside and watch, so that way when the band of thugs comes to club you over the head as you escape, he'll warn you first.
Ogo the jeweler, sly and mean, deals in stardust treasures unseen. One night vanished, shutters all closed, whispers of riches where no one goes. Through traps and shadows, Bravo's 3